Welcome to another episode of The Embedded, an ongoing exploration of the space between the glass and the technology. Today we talk to Rob Woodbridge, the founder of UNTETHERtv, a video podcast that focuses on the mobile industry. Rob discusses the privacy concerns surrounding location data and the cultural shift towards deeper personalization. Welcome, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Gabor, my pleasure.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about what is UNTETHERtv.
Well, it started off as a hobby. It's a web television show that actually focuses on the mobile space. So I've spent the last 18 months interviewing, I'd say probably 325 or more mobile entrepreneurs from around the world who are kind of pioneers in the mobile space. These guys are creating industries that didn't exist 18 months ago.
And I think that from doing that, you have a unique insight into the entire industry. What do you think is the next big thing in the mobile space and mobile screens?
I think the battle of the dash is something that's going to happen here. That's the dashboard. And a dashboard can be in your car, it can also be in your house, it can be anywhere you are. But the battle of the dash in mobile is coming. The second thing is this location as dial tone. The ubiquity of location is so important if we're all going to succeed in this space, is that you can't know that that you're being tracked, or you shouldn't have to check in anywhere. It just should be dial tone. You should be walking down the street and location is all around.
And also that means that that's a layer in which everything will get even more personalized. You believe that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, when you start to think about taking location out of the conversation, it's just there. It's what Facebook has done by getting out of a lot of this check-in technology. It's there. It's right now. It'll be attached to all your photos, your videos. It'll drive business to you based on your personal preferences. Having location just everywhere and not having to think about it is going to drive this personalization layer. Like it's going to accelerate it, certainly.
It's a bit of a cultural shift, though, isn't it? You have to have that mindset of it's okay for everybody to know where I am and not think I'm being watched almost.
Well, everybody has a price, and that's the thing about location, is that 4 years ago or 2 years ago, did you ever think that people would check in? Or 10 or 15 million people would actually broadcast the fact that they're at an Esso station or at a bar somewhere?
Right.
So when you start to think about location now, everybody has a price, and the value is different for each person. So some people who are very conscious or security conscious or don't want anybody to know where they are won't participate.
Right.
And you always have that choice. But at some point, something's going to entice you enough to give up your location, and you start participating in this world.
So what we're really talking about is like a new social contract, in which I'm allowing you to have all this data about me, about where I am, where I'm going, and in return I'm getting something of value. And you're using that personalization layer to increase the value.
Yeah, and hopefully that's what ends up happening. There are certain organizations that have started to move into that space, and if it's done right, it shouldn't be intrusive. Right. It shouldn't be something where you feel like Big Brother's watching you. It should be something that hones that funnel. It tailors the information much more to you than the broad advertising or marketing that we're being pushed at right now.
Like you said, we're inventing this space as we go along. It's amazing.
We're experimenting here. This is a massive experiment because we don't know what's going to work. We don't know what the future holds for this industry, but we see the potential. So a lot of the companies that have created a lot of interest over the last couple of years, companies like Groupon, and moving into the location-aware couponing, and companies like Foursquare and Gowalla, those guys, I think that these guys were pioneers in this space. But as with a lot of pioneers, they're struggling, and they will struggle. And ultimately, I think in a number of years, we won't remember any of these companies. And we'll look at them on a map and say, oh yeah, I remember Foursquare. I remember using Gowalla. I remember using Groupon. And these companies won't be around because they're just taking an existing thought process and flipping it into mobile or flipping it in, and that's not going to work.
Right.
That's not good enough.
Right. Yeah, you can't just mirror the real world online. You'd think that you would know that. That's the case for so many things online. You just can't mirror things.
People have to rethink, and I think that's one of the things that's missing, is that we went through a kind of a slow, plodding innovation period during the last 10 years in mobile. We've seen this kind of escalate, and all of a sudden there are 6.5 billion devices out there, and people are clamoring for services. but it was a slow process. It didn't happen overnight. And what we're seeing now are people just applying existing processes into the mobile space. You got to rethink. You got to think that this device, smartphones are transient, right? The perfect situation is when you don't have to think about a smartphone. You walk in your house, it knows who you are, it personalizes. You walk into your car, it does the same thing without that center hub being your smartphone.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, hardware is irrelevant.
Hardware, I absolutely believe that. Yeah. Hardware is irrelevant. Software is what makes it relevant, really.
Absolutely. And if you're finding enough value out of that software, out of whatever it is, you're going to continuously use it. But a lot of the companies are missing that today.
So I think what we're seeing is a cultural shift or a cultural acceptance of these concepts of being able to have ubiquitous access to data. And when I leave my car, whatever was on the screen in my car, the similar data appears on my home, and they're all connected together, right? But it just doesn't seem, there's a stumbling step there. Do you think there's a missing link somewhere?
You know, I think the link is human, right? When it comes to how we feel about using this technology, a lot of people build, the Swiss Army knife of technology, of tools, and put it out there. And I look at Foursquare as this. It started off as a very simple concept, which was just check in your location, and then ultimately you could get some benefit from that. But now it's just gotten so complicated, it's bloated, and it doesn't do anything very well anymore. And now the question is, what are consumers looking for? They're just looking for a way to make their life a little easier.
Right.
So start with that. Simple concepts to get it into their life, and that's what's missing right now. So we're thinking up here, and we're in that industry. We're thinking way up here,
right.
And what we should be doing is thinking the next stage.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest stumbling block for this right now.
Right. So we have to let go of the data a little bit, let go of the ownership of the data a little bit, and I think that maybe companies need to meet us halfway almost too. I mean, one of the things that I always find ridiculous, I've mentioned this before, is that I've got a GPS on my phone, I got a GPS in my car, but the only reason why I bought a GPS unit twice, unknowingly almost, is because I want the same type of functionality in both. Why do I have to keep rebuying the same hardware over and over and over again? And I think is it possibly because of a need for companies to own the entire experience?
Well, and companies are realizing that they can't. That they're better suited for one function, and maybe partnering is a better one. But take the GPS as an example. It was a short 3 years ago, maybe, where GPSs were insane. Like that technology, that this little box on your dash could communicate with a satellite and tell you where you were going, what the traffic was, or the weather.
Right.
Think about that. And now it's all but gone. Right. That industry is all but gone. It's been usurped by smartphones. And you spend $5,000 to get it embedded in your car, and now it costs you $60 on your iPhone for the same functionality with a lot more personalization. That's how rapid this changes, and that's when you queue on something that is going to change the way or add value to a consumer, it'll get adopted, right? And I think that's a lesson here. That's the missing link.
So what's next for you? What's next for UNTETHERtv?
Well, I mean, I love what I'm doing. It's certainly I get to interact with a global audience of mobile entrepreneurs, these guys that are shaping the landscape when it comes to the mobile industry. So I want to continue to do this as long as there's great stories to be told. And because we're in these formation years, there are so many great stories to be told. And the beauty of it is the perspective I get. North American, Canadian American, South American, Europe or Asia, we're all battling for the same thing. It's so funny. We are all working on the same things, and certainly the innovation is there. So I want to continue doing this and continuing adding value in this industry.
Fantastic. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Gabor, thanks.
Really appreciate it. So that's it for another episode of The Embedded. Join us again, and please comment and tell us what you think at www.weareembedded.com.